Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Kev McCluskey. We are here to discuss the fifth of six fixtures to Champions League, and it's finished Lazio 2-0, Celtic 0. Kevin, at half-time we were talking about a bit of a mature performance with Celtic, although it was lacking in creativity. We had gone in scoreless at that stage. There was the change. We did see two up top. We did see Kyogo getting involved. Few chances in the second half. Mikey Johnson was pretty direct, but a bit of quality really in Immobile. We know all about the player. We know what he can do. He scores two quick goals in the last 10 minutes, and then a little flurry of interest at the very end when we were awarded a penalty, and then the penalty was rescinded by the referee after a VAR check. What did you make of that second half? Is it really an indication of where we are in terms of very good, steady performance, mature performance, but just that bit short in some key areas or key moments of the game?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think that sums it up quite well. It's another one of those games that you just come away from really just feeling so frustrated. I'm now beyond being disappointed about this because there becomes a point in a game you can almost see that it's going to happen. So we've gone 80 minutes again tonight against Lazio, and I thought for those first 80 minutes we played pretty well. Like you say, it wasn't a really exciting performance. It wasn't one where we were going out to try and win the game in the first half, but it was mature, and I think that's the right word to use because you could tell that there were points in the first half and then the first 20, 25 minutes of the second that Lazio were getting frustrated. They couldn't really get in behind us. I don't think they were really creating that many clear-cut chances, and as the home team, the onus was on them to do that. We were defending pretty well. There was a spell in the second half where we were beginning to come out of our shell. It's probably no coincidence it's kind of when Kyogo's dropped back a wee bit. Mikey Johnson's come on with the fresh legs. I thought he was impressive when he came on, but there's still big question marks over his final ball. But for 80 minutes, we played a pretty decent game. And then the same thing happened that's happened so many times before. We give the opponent one chance, one clear chance, and they take it. Now, we could get two or three chances in a game at this level and we'll maybe take one. We tend to give one up and they take it and we crumble and we've given away the second one straight away. It's a bit of a pill to swallow because I thought we played, as I say, fairly well for the majority of that game. But you can see it coming. So it doesn't come as a huge surprise. And that's the bit that just, I don't know right now, it's almost apathy, I would feel just now because you can see it coming. We know why it's happened because there was a poor transfer window in the summer and we didn't strengthen. To go back to our fabled Acsom chat, Brian Degnan has said this and he said it on the podcast as well. We've gone from winning a treble last season to signing 9 players in the summer and actually looking weaker. And we haven't progressed in Europe. As much as I think we've maybe taken small steps in certain games, over the piece, we're still coming up just short. And we shouldn't be at the moment because they were a pretty poor Lazio team. I felt, because when we actually had the ascendancy for a spell, you could tell that their defence was shaking a wee bit. It was a bit weak. And you just feel safe. We had that word again. If we had that 1, 2, 3 more quality players in there, we could have won that game tonight. And that's the thing that really is going to get at me for a while.
Yeah, because the opportunity was there. Now we're going to welcome in Ian Conroy, who is dialing in from New Zealand. Welcome to the show, Ian. Another disappointing game in Europe for Celtic. After the match is finished, we do these post-match bulletins. These are the reactions. We're gutted as Celtic supporters, of course we are, but you try to pick the bones of the defeat. You try to look at the kind of short-term issues. What are the more ingrained issues within the Celtic psyche? What is it that we're doing wrong? And I think Kevin mentioned there that we can go right back to the summer. We can go to the point where we have spent money, we have brought in bodies, but the quality has just not been there, has it?
it's the hope that kills us, isn't it? It's the hope that kills us, and it is, just mirroring what you were saying there, Kevin. It is a kind of a predictable and repetitive scenario when we're in Europe. But you're right, Paul John. It's I wrote a note at the end of my notes, and it was like with Yang, as an example of one of these players that's come in. It's he looks a decent player, but he's 2 years off being what we need him to be, and especially in Europe at this point. But the irony is that Yang, I'm sure, will become a player. He'll either disappear, drop off, and go back home, or he'll go on to bigger and better things. But with somebody else and not with us. So we're developing them, and then we're in this cycle of a development, as this kind of fertile arena for players to come and develop. And I'm sure part of the sell to sign players with promise is that we're a stepping stone to bigger leagues. So we're almost in a continual state of flux. And I think it was only with Ange really that it seemed like he was the grown up in the room, that he had a strong voice that was big enough to stand up and it had a big enough personality to stand up to the board really. You just know that no one would mess about with them, the players and I think we're lacking. And I think for me as the observer and as a fan, the intensity's dropped off. It was almost, there's been a couple of changes in the first team, really, but we've signed a lot of players, but they're not always getting an option. That intensity's dropped down. It's ratcheted down. So therefore, when you're physical, the pace you're playing the game at drops down. Of course, your mental speed will also reduce exponentially. And I don't think I think if that was under Ange today, Lazio were for the taking. We would have had that intensity. We would have broken its speed. The speed of thought would have been there, and the speed of thought has dropped down. It's the same way I said that in the chat the other day. With the speed in the legs, the mind is also is adapted to that pace, I believe. The signing policy is a big bugbear of mine, as you know. As I said, I'm no different to a lot of fans, I just don't understand why we didn't build upon Ange's great work, and the Kyogo thing is mad. You look at Ange. Sounds like I'm harping on about Ange here, but you look at what he's done with Son down at Tottenham. He lost Harry Kane, and he made Son the focal point. You're my man, and I'm not suggesting we make Kyogo the captain. We've got a great captain in Kalmak, but I was reading a thing about Terry Venables. Rest in peace, Terry Venables. And in fact, it was Alan Shearer that said for the Euros, there's had a plethora of strikers, and he said, no matter what, you're my man to start in the first game in the Euros. And Shearer wasn't really doing particularly well for England. Shearer was like, well, what can that do to your confidence? It's just, you're the man, And he said, I just didn't want to let him down. And I think Kyogo would be the same. But Kyogo he's often caught in no man's land, because I don't think he fully understands where he should be and what he should be doing. And you think what he did last season, dropping into the wee pockets, never switching off. I mean, the goal against the Rangers in the Glasgow Derby, when he was round the back and he didn't switch off and he scored, it was like these little things. He's not doing that anymore. He's not getting the chance to do that because he's playing a different role. So it's a perfect storm at the moment. We're in a state of transition. So this is a transitional season. But at Celtic, you've got to win the league. You can't, if you're transitioning, you've got to win the league. Seconds nowhere, as we know. So that's my soapbox moment.
No, but it does go that deep, though, Ian. It's not just the case of picking the bones of the performance tonight. You could look at that and say, right, we got to half-time at nothing each. We had spoken about a change of shape maybe in the first half, but, Rodgers went toe-to-toe, although we were not a creative force. We were not an attacking force in the first half. It goes into the second half, you start thinking to yourself, when will the change be made? And the Kurgan comes in and says that Rodgers waiting till the 70th minute to make changes. I don't think that's coming as a positive from you, Kurgan. I think at that stage, we were hoping to open it up a wee bit. We really hadn't done it at that point, Kevin. And just going to the point that Ian was making, Kyogo has not been involved in the games as much as we would like. He started, surprise, surprise, to get into this game once O entered the fray. He was able to drop a wee bit deeper and he started getting involved. I mean, within the first 6 minutes of the second half, in actual fact, we started creating chances. I think it was a positive move. I'm just going to get the tin hat on for this one. It was a positive move when Mikey Johnson came on. He looked direct. He was giving you far more than what Forrest had given in all the time he was on the park. And he was willing to run at his man and hopefully make something happen. So I think the changes in the second half, you can maybe look at the timing of them. You can maybe look at bringing on David Turnbull when the game's gone, etc. But they did work, Kevin, in terms of us opening the game up a wee bit more. It didn't look as though we were going to craft a chance in that first half.
No, it didn't. As I said at half time, I think that first half was actually pretty, in a sense, perfect for us because we were frustrating Lazio. We came out with more of the possession as well. I think with like 52, 54%. Granted, it was all in our final third of the park, most of it. But we were calm, we were composed, we were doing what we should be doing defensively. We were making it difficult for them in the first half. And the important thing that we said was, let's come in at half time at least level. And we were. We hadn't conceded that goal, which then leads to the second, which we always seem to do. And unfortunately, we did later on. But first half, I think, was actually fairly fine. Started the second half, again, we did pick it up a bit. And Mikey Johnson comes on in the hour mark. And he made an immediate impact. It's like, that's my first two notes after he comes on is that he's involved straight away. He's running at the defenders. He's got one chance. I think it's just 2-3 minutes after he comes on, where he could probably have taken a shot, but he tries to. He's got his head down though. That's the only thing with him. His final ball and his decision making just always seems to let him down. And I don't know if that's maybe just a lack of game time. And if he gets more games, it'll start to come naturally. But at least he was getting involved. And within 5 minutes, he'd done more than James Forrest as an attacking threat. And it was exactly at the time when we needed that wee step up. Then O comes on with 20 minutes to go. And like you say, that change. If we talk about Yang in the first half, being on the park and being a body down and causing O'Reilly to have to do the job of two men and only be half a man down in a sense, then O coming on brought Kyogo back into the game. And it was almost like, again, he's kind of revitalised the team. Kyogo's looking good. We were creating. I think the subs up to that point were fine. And actually, I think up until the goal, we're doing pretty well in the second half. And we probably looked the team that was most likely to score. And we just get done by the sucker punch. It's a daft goal to lose because it's not the first time we've let. I'll try to pronounce his name. Guendouzi. I think it is. We just gave him so much space in the midfield. It's Kyogo that's at fault for it, and you can kind of let him off to a degree because he's an offensive player. But he's got to see him making the move behind him. He gets far too much space, and we cannot let a class team get that kind of opportunity. But we shoot ourselves in the foot. But up until then, yeah, subs worked. We were making the right impact in that second half. We were deserving of something from the game up till then.
You know, there's always frustration on nights like tonight. And as I say, you could basically go on a blow by blow, just looking at this specific 90 minutes. But I think a lot of the issues that exist at the moment are deeper rooted than that. And a lot of the comments and the frustrations that are coming through are pretty clear that that's what we're focusing on. Jonathan Brown, we batter Dross domestically. We are all happy. Then when we play actual teams, we are angry when we lose. Yeah, we are. But I do think there are certain things we've got to take responsibility for that we're not doing right. There's other things that are beyond our control. And the level that we play at week after week is something we just need to deal with. You go from Motherwell and battering Aberdeen 6-0 to taking a huge step up into the Champions League and playing a team like Lazio away from home. That step up is huge. And then and I think we've seen this against Atletico Madrid, if you're then to defend against quality opposition for wave after wave of attacking and you're not used to it, then I think it shows us up because we generally don't have that. We don't experience that domestically. So there are things that we need to do better. There's other aspects of where Celtic are that makes it very difficult to compete at this level, Ian, and we've got to take that as well.
Yeah, I think that's obvious. It's the old, the cliches can all come out. The cream rises to the top and all that kind of stuff. But it does ultimately. That's, we call when we say the cream rises to the top. we can call that fine margins, and it is fine margins when you have 11v11. Fair enough, right? You can match each other for attitude and for endeavour, but then skill and class then takes you further if you have that in your team, in your locker, and that's where the cream rises. And we see that time and time again in Europe. You know, we are a veritable backwater in European terms. You know, so again, it's the Moneyball thing. If we condense those 2 million, 3 million projects and spent it on a 10 million player and had two of them. And I said this before on a blog before about, you know, the great Liverpool teams and the Man United teams. It was a constant, gentle evolution with successful teams, but they would go out. Some not always, but generally they'd go out and find and sign one or two quality players that would keep that competition and keep it moving and keep that water from getting stagnant. And we're changing too much in the wrong areas, and we're not getting the quality. Like I said before, if Yang, I've no doubt Yang in a couple of years, he's got the potential to be a really cracking player and could be playing for the likes of Lazio, you know. But he needs that development period, and you're doing it at Celtic, you know. We're a big team, you know. We still trade on past glories in Europe, you know, and we shouldn't be. So many of these games, under Ange last season and this season, those fine margins, if we had that little bit more quality in certain areas, we wouldn't have lost these goals and we would have scored or we would have made more opportunities. And these fine margins, and that gap closes, you know, and it's all right us saying it and putting it into practices is entirely different. We still might get a 5 million, 10 million pound dud, but you're increasing your chances of success if you go out and spend on quality. And like we did with Edouard, you know, we spent 9 million. He was supposedly a project, but we sold him on. So it's not as big a risk as you might think, unless they're an older player, you know. But that wouldn't be a bad thing as well. I think you look at Martin O'Neill's team. He had a team full of captains.
Yeah.
Imagine Chris Sutton in that team we had now. He wouldn't stand for it. You know, we raised people up by the bootstraps on the pitch as well, you know. And I don't think we've got enough leaders on the pitch. You've got Kalmak, who's brilliant, you know, he's exemplary in every facet. But I don't think we've got enough leaders on the pitch as well. And the obvious areas, I won't labour the point, obviously, the left back area, the goalkeeper. Although Joe Hart, you know, I thought he was at fault tonight. But, you know, these things are known to all of us as fans. So Brendan has said, now he's come out and said, he's almost making a rod for his own back if it doesn't come to pass, that he's in charge of transfers and he wants quality over quantity. I have my doubts, and I don't blame Rodgers for that. I don't know whether he's coming into a poison chalice a wee bit, because there's one thing that stays the same, and the guys in situ up above and on the board, they stay the same, and therefore that culture remains and that stays the same.
Yeah, and you know, from the very first moment that he came back, he was talking about the fact that due to the change of our recruitment approach, he thought things would work differently this time round. You're talking about experience. I thought there was a great point made yesterday by Acsom, who, when we look at the amount of experience that we've actually lost and leadership, you could take it right back to Nir Bitton and Tommy Rogic leaving the club, and then Juranovic, Giacomakis, and Starfelt. These guys all had loads of experience. They were at that age where they had played the game at a high level. Not everybody's favourites, particularly with Bitton. You know, we could have an entire show about people who didn't rate him in the slightest. Yet another European campaign when Bitton's playing centre half, it was like Groundhog Day. But you do lose the experience, and I don't think we've replaced it necessarily now. I'm going to bring this up because Thomas O'Hara, every game Acsom say we're good. Absolutely not. And if you want to go and check on the social media, it's the flip side often that people come in and say that we are overly critical of the club. You know, what I would say about this particular campaign, go and have a look at the European games. We've not said that we've been good after every single game, every defeat. I think that when you go down to 9 men against Feyenoord away from home, you're up against it. It doesn't come down to performance. It comes down to the fact that you're playing with 9 men. I think the Lazio game at home, very unlucky. The 2-each game against Atletico Madrid was probably the maximum that we could attain this season. And then obviously the away game in Spain was a disaster. And tonight again, yeah, there's very few moments in that second half that I actually believe that Celtic would craft out a chance and win the game. But we were in the game until the last 10 minutes. That's the positive. The negative is we've gone into the game with a number of positions I feel that simply are not good enough at this level. And I believe that, you know, if you can't compete financially with these teams, you've got to be smarter. You've got to find other ways to do your business. And I think it's Kevin Graham that's talking about making sure that you invest in the best possible recruitment you've got, where the margin for error is very, very short. At the moment, I think the margin for error in the last 3 transfer windows has been far too wide. We have bought far too many players who are not either good enough for this level or are not ready to play at this level. And that, over a period of 3 windows, means that the cycle gets to this point where we're simply not good enough for the Champions League. And I think this season has shown that. If you look at the games last season, Kevin, you and I think, covered all 6 games. We're looking at positives after virtually every game. We're looking at the Shakhtar Donetsk games as being a missed opportunity to actually get more points on the board. But we had something to work with there. But what you've then got to remember is since then, not only have we lost the gaffer, who was putting his own print and his own style on the side, but we have lost big players for us in Jota, Starfelt and Moy. None of those 3 have been replaced, have they? I mean, Palmer's made a good impression since he's came in. He wasn't playing tonight, of course, but they've not been replaced in terms of the influence of each of those individuals in this Celtic side, have they? And so we're certainly not strengthened. Have we gone backwards? Are we weaker now? I would say we are on the field, yeah.
Yeah, I think now it's probably clear to say that we are a weaker side now than we were when we ended last season. The 3 that you've mentioned, it was going to be difficult to replace them, and certainly in terms of like for like. You know, Jota was that unique kind of player. He was the bums on seats guy. He was the guy that's got that ability to work something out of nothing. And those guys don't come around very easily, especially not in the market that we are shopping in. So we need to be smart when we're doing a recruitment. You know, we need to maybe go out and find another option like him. And by that, I mean another kind of loan to buy, where we're not maybe investing all that much money up front, but we're taking a bit of a punt on another talented player that's in that wide area. But he was always going to be a very difficult player to replace, because he was 20 goals plus 20 assists a season. So 40 goal contributions is a big loss. I think Starfelt's an underrated loss at the back. As much as he had his his doubters, as much as he did have an error in him every now and again, he brought a bit of experience to the back line. And at left centre back next to Greg Taylor, I think he probably helped Greg Taylor become a better player. Taylor obviously was helped by playing the inverted fullback role, but we having Starfelt next to him, I think he dug him out quite a few times because he had the good recovery pace, and he's he just had that experience to be in the right place, right time more often than not. I don't know. Defensively, I mean, we did go out and spend £8-9 million almost in 2 centre backs. One of them doesn't seem to get a look in. Seemingly Rodgers doesn't rate him. The other one, Nawrocki's been troubled with injury. So there's a wee bit kind of misfortune there. And it's not been through a lack of trying to replace him, but we haven't replaced him. And even if Nawrocki turns out to be a player, he's only 21 as well. So we're missing that experience. And at this level, that's what costs us. Because the second goal tonight comes from Liam Scales being a bit weak in the challenge. I think an experienced player goes up and puts his whole body into that challenge to win the ball with Immobile, because he knows he's in a challenge. And Scales is just brushed aside too easily. So it's those things that have cost us again tonight, and they'll continue to cost us throughout the rest of the season, potentially, until we can resolve them, hopefully in January. The rest of the season goes on just by getting a bit of kind of stability within the team.
There's lots of frustrated comments coming through, so let's get some of them up on the board and have a chat about them. Stephen McGonigal comes in. How come Motherwell and St Johnstone can compete with us? I don't think they can. They can't. When was the last time they won the league? They can't. On a given day, no team wins every single game. They'll get a result here and there, but they can't compete with us, can they, Stephen? So I don't agree with that. Michael Riley, cue the post-match. We'll learn from the experience. Patter, the board need to learn from their poor choices. I think it's difficult for the players and the manager. Listen, I'm not going to stand up for Celtic time after time after time again. There's loads of things I'm frustrated with at the club. The fact that we go to, and how I described it last time round, going to a gunfight with a water pistol, and I'm getting told that I'm being too positive about Celtic. I'm frustrated as anybody else when it comes to European endeavours and basically not being at the races. I don't want to just show up. I don't want to be a tourist. But the thing is, Michael, if you get the captain up for a post-match or Brendan Rodgers, although Rodgers has been known at times to fire thinly veiled or otherwise comments that the board that are obviously going to have to listen into. Hopefully we're not at that stage yet. But you know what? After the game, what are they going to say, Ian? We simply are not good enough at this level at this moment in time. And the only way that you get there is transfer window by transfer window, continually bringing in quality. We didn't bring in enough quality in the last transfer window or in the previous two. That's 3 transfer windows over a period of a season and a half. That's when you start to notice the difference, especially if you're losing quality during those transfer windows as well, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. What can you add to that, really? What can't speak, can't lie. If we map it over goodness knows how long, at least 10 years, it's been the same. It's the same, and the same. The only people that have been continual through that are certain members of the board and certainly ownership. So any culture, I've said this before, it's like some kind of management wanker, excuse my French, but it's like all cultures in any walk of life comes from the very top, right? So Mr. Desmond must be happy with this scenario. He must be happy with the way this, because it's the trend that has lasted long enough for us to know exactly what's going to happen every year when we get into Europe. So we know we're going to get pumped out. It's that the hope that kills us, and it's that miserable, that valiant failure that we became known for last year. Not so in many years, but in this year, not as valiant. And I'm thinking as well, under Ange, with a clear identity. This is not the Ange loving, right? I love Brendan Rodgers. I really do. I wrote a blog on it. I think he's top coach. He's an elite level coach. I don't see a clear identity to marry along with the players we've got. Of course, we're in transition. I'm annoyed with the culture at the club. I'm annoyed with how they continually keep doing it, changing. We're changing managers, we're changing personnel, but there's nothing changing. There's no injection. And I said before about Manchester United, that remains to be seen if Jim Ratcliffe will come in and with fresh injection of ideas. You've still got the same ownership, but you've got someone at that level that's coming in with fresh ideas, who is going to shake it up. Some chlorine for the gene pool a wee bit, and we're not getting that turnover, that kind of that freshness at board level. So I think as long as that remains, let's just press repeat. We might as well just play this again next season if we win the league. Play one of these. Play what I'm saying next season. It'll be the same kind of talk.
Same frustrations. I remember reading an article from a Scottish journalist who had tried for years to get an interview with Dermot Desmond, and eventually he blagged a number which was for one of his companies, knowing that he was in that day, and all he had to do was to blag his way past the PA, which he did. And Dermot Desmond comes on the phone, having knocked him back something like 17 times for an interview. And he put the guy on the spot, and he basically says, "You want an interview with me?" "Yes." "What do you want to talk about?" "I want to talk about Celtic. I want to talk about ambition. I want to talk about where the club's going. How many trophies have we won since I've been involved in the club?" That was what he said, right? And the guy couldn't answer the question. He couldn't answer the question. Now, I'm sure he would have done his homework, but he doesn't know he's going to be asked that random question. But in that one fell swoop, he was denied the interview. But what Dermot Desmond's saying to him is, how dare you question our European prowess? Look at the success that we've got. And you're adding up the League Cups, the Scottish Cups, the domestic trophies, of which we are very good at racking them up. 4 trebles in a row. We completed Scottish football. 4 trebles in a row. What did we do in Europe? What did we do in Europe during the 9 in a row that we recently won? Not a great deal. Now, people will show you that to get beyond the group stages, and they could give you a whole list of every team that's got beyond the group stages in the last 5 seasons, and this is the money that they spent. Do you really think Celtic should be spending that money with no guarantee of getting through? No, I don't. But if you can convince me that in the last 3 transfer windows, we've done the best business we could possibly do, then why on earth are we replacing James Forrest with Mikey Johnson tonight? We've not done the best business we can do. We don't have the best quality in that squad that we could possibly have. We don't even have a backup left back, for goodness sake. So it's not about trying to compete with clubs that are spending £100 million and saying, well, we need to spend at that level. It's about doing things better. And we're not even doing that. We're not maximising our own spend. And I agree with you, Ian. I've said it for years. I'd much rather 2 or 3 every single transfer window. And one of them might be an Odin Holm who is going to develop over 2 or 3 years. We've seen it with Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly was a development player. You mentioned Odson Edouard. He was a development player, a very expensive one. Dembele was a development player. I'm not saying you just tear that up. What I'm saying, though, is that in that transfer window there, we had lost so much quality. We had to replace it with quality. And we didn't. We absolutely haven't. I mean, Lewis Palmer's looking like the real deal. And hopefully in the next season or 2, he shows that. But he's not ready just now for tearing up the Champions League. And Celtic are miles off that kind of level. So it's a frustrating one. And yes, you're right. You could go back over all the European performances since we started A Celtic State of Mind back in 2017, where I'm trying to convince Kevin Graham that we're a Champions League team and he's telling us we're not. We're a Europa League team. We're still here. We're still having the same conversations. Have we moved on? There's a lot of people angered and frustrated in the comments, and there's 3 sitting here on the panel of A Celtic State of Mind who are feeling exactly the same. It's not great. The dust will settle. We will be back at 12:30 tomorrow for another bulletin. I've got to thank every one of you, 1,300 strong on the post-match after a disappointing defeat, for tuning in to A Celtic State of Mind. And all that's left for me to say thank you once again, Kevin McCluskey and Ian Conroy, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Yes. Thanks, Paul.